Tonight,
Delighted you're all here.
the White House wants an infrastructure deal.
We're looking for this bipartisan effort.
But can the Senate deliver?
You know how the Senate works.
As Washington closes out another week where things stand on the negotiations. Plus,
this is the crescendo of a groundswell of pro-life momentum that's been growing.
a new push to overturn the Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion.
It's in a direct contrast to the legacy of Roe.
Which state is leading the charge? And
China is about to launch one of the most revolutionary financial projects in the world.
how that could lead to tighter government control over the Chinese people. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Negotiations over an infrastructure deal won't take a break this weekend. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Tara Mergener.
And I'm John Jessup. Senate lawmakers will work around the clock trying to complete the bipartisan infrastructure plan after the GOP blocked a test vote for debate earlier this week.
That's right. Republicans said it lacked crucial details like how to pay for it. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now with the latest. Eric.
The devil's always in the details, right? Well, today, one of President Biden's key allies in the Senate says he's willing to support the bipartisan infrastructure package, even if it means sacrificing the Democratic priority of increased funding to public transportation. Delaware Senator Chris Coons told CNN there would be a chance to add the money back in down the road during reconciliation. That comes after every Republican in the Senate voted against starting debate on the bipartisan infrastructure deal. And while those on the infrastructure committee seem optimistic about hammering out the details, frustration is still growing over the slow pace of progress.
Mr. Schumer, no.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was not surprised Wednesday's cloture vote did not pass, indicating on The View the goal was to move the process along.
You know how the Senate works. Unless you get a deadline, nothing will happen.
The $1.2 trillion bipartisan deal aims to fix and upgrade traditional infrastructure like roads, bridges, and broadband. The rub comes with how to pay for it. The president said during this week's CNN town hall he believes this could be worked out as soon as Monday, since they already have agreement on the contents of the bill.
You had up to 20 Republicans sign a letter saying, we think we need this deal. I come from a tradition in the Senate. You shake your hand, that's it. You keep your word.
Around here, we typically write the bills before we vote on them. That's the custom.
Republicans scoff at the bipartisan plan coupled with the Dems' $3 trillion budget bill, saying irresponsible spending will only drive up already rising inflation. But a recent report from Moody's Analytics indicates the pair of plans would actually stabilize prices and decrease the risk of inflation.
I have every intention of passing both major infrastructure packages, the bipartisan infrastructure framework and a budget resolution with reconciliation instructions before we leave for the August recess.
It is yet to be seen whether Monday's informal deadline will be reached for the bipartisan plan. In the meantime, tempers are starting to flare on both sides. Democrats accusing Republicans of slow-walking the process. Republicans saying Democrats are being unreasonable in their demands. Tara.
All right, Eric, never a dull moment. Thank you. Well, President Biden is back on the campaign trail tonight, this time for the Democratic gubernatorial candidate in Virginia, Terry McAuliffe. McAuliffe served a previous term as governor from 2014 through 2018. This time around, the president says he's all in to help McAuliffe secure a second term. But I sat down with his Republican opponent, Glenn Youngkin, who says Biden's campaigning comes because Democrats are worried about how close the race is and the show of support he has from Republicans across the Commonwealth and the country.
One of the great things that happened when I won the Republican convention was that all Republicans came together and said, we're for Glenn. President Trump endorsed me the next day, and I thanked him for it. And then I had endorsements from lots of other people, and I thanked them for it. And what this reflects is the Republican Party coming together in Virginia and actually making a statement. And the statement is that Republicans actually recognize that if we aren't together, we won't win. And if we are together, we can win. And that's been a fabulous development during this race.
And Julia in Manchester, The Hill, and Chief Political Analyst David Brody are here now for more. Julia, let's start with you. President Biden has about a 52% approval rating. How much of that will carry over in his campaigning for McAuliffe in Virginia?
Well, right now we see that President Biden has a decent approval rating nationwide and in Virginia. We know that Democrats in Virginia have been doing well ever since 2009. In fact, a Republican in Virginia hasn't won since then, so he has that advantage. However, we are seeing more Republican and conservative messaging nationwide and in Virginia about the state of the economy. They're talking about rising prices. They're talking about inflation. So there will definitely be a concerted effort from the Youngkin campaign and conservatives to tie Biden and, by extension, McAuliffe to that. You're also hearing a lot about crime and increasing crime in cities like Richmond, for example, or in outside of Washington, D.C. Critical race theory is another theory that conservatives are really talking up to attack Democrats in order to get some more leeway with those suburban voters that have leaned Democratic in recent years. So it's an uphill climb for Youngkin against someone like McAuliffe, who has Biden on his side. However, you're going to see more attacks from the right to McAuliffe and Biden.
Speaking of crime, as Julia just mentioned, David, Glenn Youngkin did not get the endorsement of the NRA. Tell our voters why and how much does that potentially hurt him?
Well, you know, he's a businessman, and he's not going to, he's trying to split the middle here, or the difference, if you will. And so I think with Glenn Youngkin, it's going to be interesting to watch him do not just the NRA tap dance, if you will, but also the Trump tap dance, right? To embrace Trump but not embrace Trump. And I think if he plays it too cute by half, he's going to be in trouble. But what I'm watching specifically is what Julia said, specifically in the suburbs, Loudoun County, Prince William County. These are the suburbs of Washington, D.C., the burbs, the ex-burbs, and all of those type of burbs, because what is bubbling up in Loudoun County on critical race theory and transgender bathrooms, we're seeing parents, school kids even, come to these school board meetings and say enough is enough. I think Democrats may be overplaying their hand nationally. It could hurt Terry McAuliffe. And let's remember, Terry McAuliffe did not win by a huge majority last time he ran. He beat Ken Cuccinelli, but it wasn't by much. So I think Youngkin's got more than a puncher's chance. He's got a decent-sized chance.
To the point that Julia made earlier, David, Virginia has been solidly blue statewide in governor's races since Bob McDonnell's term expired in 2014. What's it going to take for the GOP to flip that trend and win back the governor's mansion?
Well, I think it's going to have to be, it's going to start in the suburbs. I mean, let's be honest. So back to those suburbs in Washington, D.C., if you notice, the state of Virginia does pretty well in Republican territory, especially in the rural areas. Obviously, they have some issues in the Newport News area down there. But it's all about the Washington, D.C. suburbs. And so this is where Youngkin comes in. This is where his business background and his kind of that center-right tone could help. Remember, Ken Cuccinelli back in the day was kind of pigeonholed, if you will, as a far-right guy, as a guy that was tough on immigration, but it wasn't just immigration. He was just a bare knuckles type guy. Youngkin trying to position himself differently, that could be the difference in 2021.
We here in the Beltway have the benefit of seeing some of those campaign advertisements. Glenn Youngkin's campaign messaging so far has been pretty universal, to your point, David. Julia, turning to infrastructure, one of the key sticking points beyond the pay-fors seems to be transit funding and broadband. Julia, Republicans have been vocal all this time about what they see as too many non-infrastructure related items. Do you see an argument to be made that those are both key to nationwide infrastructure?
Well, we see that Democrats are making the argument, especially with broadband, saying, look, in order to connect the entire country, you need to reach out not only to rural communities that might not have as much broadband access, but to urban communities that don't have the same kind of broadband connections that other parts of a particular city might. So they're saying it's all about connectivity, and they say the country's moving in a direction where internet is involved with everything, including transportation. So you're going to see that argument. But I think the universal pushback from Republicans, not only on this, but on other issues like the American Rescue Plan, for example, has been that this is too big of a package, that we are spending too much, and they're tying all of this spending to inflation and the rising costs of living. Now, Democrats brushing that off, saying, look, inflation is going to be temporary. We're going to get over this. But other economists, and I think an increasing number of economists, are essentially saying, look, this could be longer than we initially thought.
David, the last 30 seconds or so to you. Will there be a deal that's made?
I think there probably will be, actually. And normally, you know me, well, I am a glass half full guy, but in the case of Congress, I always go with the pessimistic glass. I do think that Portman and Romney and all these center moderates, some would call them rhinos, obviously, will most likely figure out a way to figure out the pay-fors. Obviously, that's the big sticking point. So I think ultimately they'll get there, but obviously the big concern, the controversy will be the next stage, the $3.5 trillion social infrastructure. Yeah, infrastructure. Give me a break.
All right, David, Julia, thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great weekend and see you next time.
You too, John. Thanks.
All right, the pro-life fight to end abortion, how Mississippi is making the case to throw out Roe v. Wade. Next.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crabb Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A new push to end abortion now. The Supreme Court should overturn Roe v. Wade, the 1973 landmark rule legalizing the procedure. Mississippi's Republican Attorney General is making that argument in new court papers, saying nothing in constitutional text, structure, history, or tradition supports a right to abortion. That new paperwork was filed as the state's AG Lynn Finch prepares her case that will go before the court later this year. That case is over a state ban on abortion after 15 weeks.
Well, Ken Blackwell is the Senior Fellow for Human Rights and Constitutional Governance at the Family Research Council. Ken, great to see you. According to a Pew survey in May, nearly 60% of Americans, 59%, think abortion should be legal. Still, pro-life advocates say now is the time to challenge Roe v. Wade. Ken, what makes this moment ripe from a legal and cultural standpoint to challenge Roe versus Wade?
Well, first, let me just applaud the Mississippi Attorney General for making a compelling case that we should end this barbaric practice that has cost us millions of American lives. And let me also say that we're right in the middle of a constitutional struggle. There are those forces in the country that want to destroy constitutional governance that puts a restraint on government and leaves decisions to individuals and states where states and individuals are closest to the challenge or impacted by the decision. And so not only is science on the side of this effort to stop this barbaric practice, right now popular opinion is in fact is pushing towards doing away with what I consider to be an unconstitutional Roe v. Wade policy that's in play right now that has, in fact, pushed states like Mississippi out of the decision process when they, in fact, their actions are more reflective of the will of a people at a rapidly growing number.
Ken, if Roe is overturned by the Supreme Court, what does that really look like practically?
Practically, it would kick it back to the states, and states legislatures could, in fact, make decisions that govern their state. Look, whether it's elections or protecting innocent life, there is a struggle now to federalize or move towards a statist form of government. And what has made us, a robust, successful, exceptional constitutional republic in the 245 years that we have been around is the fact that we have put a harness on the reach and the muscularity of the central or federal government. This is part of that struggle where states are basically saying we can't have the central government telling us, the federal government telling us that we must embrace this barbaric practice of taking innocent life. That second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that these lives, our rights, are not grants from government, but they're gifts from God. And it talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we know that you cannot pursue liberty if you're dead. And we have over 60 million babies that have been taken, innocent lives that have been taken from us. So much human potential that has been wasted and taken through this barbaric act.
All right, Ken, we appreciate your thoughts. Thanks for being here on this Friday.
Thank you, Ken.
Good to be with you.
Well, the country's biggest wildfire continues to burn in southern Oregon. The Bootleg fire, sparked by lightning, has destroyed an area half the size of Rhode Island. After burning around 70 homes, fire officials say it was 40% contained. In California, the Tamarack fire south of Lake Tahoe burned more than 78 square miles. Lightning also starting that fire.
Well, I was worried about my house because there's a mountain right behind my house, and the fire was coming right down, and so I don't know if my house is there or not.
Another huge fire is the Dixie Fire in Plumas County, California. It burned more than 223 square miles as of Friday morning, destroying at least 8 structures and threatened at least 1,500 more.
All right, a cashless currency controlled by its Communist Party, the latest move of the Chinese government, and what it could mean for Americans.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless
Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
All right, China wants to go cashless now. The communist regime is creating a new digital currency to replace traditional money.
That's right, Tara. For some, though, it's sparking growing alarm over unprecedented government control. CBN's George Thomas reports.
The Chinese were the first in the world to invent paper money back in the 7th century. Now, more than 1,400 years later, China is again on the cusp of creating a new form of government currency that some say could pose a serious economic threat to America and the West.
China is about to launch one of the most revolutionary financial projects in the world.
They're not cryptocurrencies. They're not so-called stable coins. In effect, they are the national physical currency of a country, just represented in a digital form.
Eric Bethel is the former U.S. executive director of the World Bank.
Bitcoin near record highs, crossing 23,000.
He says while the world fixates on private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin,
but the digital yuan isn't a payment system, it's actual money.
Beijing is busy building a digital version of its own currency, the yuan, also known as the renminbi, to control its citizens and eventually threaten the dominance of the U.S. dollar.
They've pretty much created all of the building blocks that will allow a central bank digital currency to flourish.
And Yahya Fanusi, a former economic and counterterrorism analyst in the CIA, says China's goal is to replace cash with a digital currency that's controlled by the communist government's central bank.
China has said for a while that it expects to pretty much be a cashless society in the future. So the idea is that cash notes, coins will no longer be around and that people will be using digital currency that's going to be in their wallets.
That digital currency will also be issued by the government bank, allowing what Congressman Michael McCall, the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says is unprecedented access to people's financial transactions.
This will give them data on behavior, on how they spend.
And giving Beijing the power to track that spending in real time.
There will be a point where the People's Bank of China is going to be able to peer inside of every single transaction that everyone does 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Which means if you are a human rights activist or a Christian, authorities can now use this new technology to punish you if you engage in activities they consider anti-government.
This technological ability is something that the government has never had before. It always had to go to companies to say, okay, cut off this person. Now, the Chinese government, I think, with sort of the proverbial flip of a switch, can make people fall in line by cutting off their access to money.
Eventually, U.S. and other foreign companies doing business in China will be required to use the government's new digital currency payment system.
There's a competitive issue. There are, I'd say, even cybersecurity issues, privacy issues. You're handing over your data to the Chinese Communist Party by participating in this digital currency system.
The U.S. dollar is the world's dominant reserve currency. China's renminbi is number 8. Beijing's ambition is to eventually supplant the dollar's global dominance with the digital yuan.
The big concern is internationally, especially for the U.S., is in the long term, this is an important step. This is what I would call a fintech, a financial technology development. And the issue is that China is thinking decades in advance. It's not thinking about the next 2 to 3 years, per se.
In June, the communist government handed out more than $6 million worth of its digital currency to its citizens as part of a series of trials around the country. The first kicked off in Beijing, allowing residents there to use 2 government bank apps to test digital payments. China then plans to make its big digital currency splash at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. Now that the world's largest authoritarian regime has launched this first-of-a-kind sovereign digital currency, some in the U.S., like Congressman Mike Waltz, worry Beijing will use this form of payment to also skirt economic sanctions.
The Chinese government convinces countries like Burma, Iran, North Korea, and others to do business in that Chinese digital currency. It'll also allow China and those countries to work around one of our most powerful tools, which is sanctions.
Based on history, Waltz believes China is only too happy to share the technology with other rogue regimes that seek to enhance their own surveillance capabilities over their citizens.
So that those other countries in Africa, the Middle East, and elsewhere can dominate their people in line with the Chinese version of government. But that data then comes back to Beijing so that they will literally, through facial recognition, be able to monitor the globe.
George Thomas, CBN News.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Wednesday at 3 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Finally tonight, Tara, are you excited? The Tokyo Olympics are finally underway.
I love the Olympics, but delayed a year due to COVID. Today, opening ceremonies took place in Japan's capital city. Due to pandemic precautions, though, no spectators were inside the stadium for the event. But outside, the night ended with a light show many around the city could see. Not only did it include fireworks, but also a drone display. 1,824 globes, that's a lot, flew together to assemble a revolving globe in the sky above the stadium. In a Twitter post, the Olympics said it represented the message, stronger together.
I know there's not going to be a lot of fans in the stands, but I'm sure a lot of people will be watching.
Absolutely. Good luck to everybody. That's going to do it for Faith Nation.
Have a great weekend.